All right, now we're going to talk about the dash full process. And before I get into talking about dash full, I quickly want to review what a synthetic full is. A synthetic full synthesizes a full backup by taking data from previous backups and copy them into a new full. It relies on the previous full or synthetic full and all subsequent jobs, those being most likely incrementals. No one's going to use differentials when it comes to dedupe. Makes no sense. All right. Now, what a synthetic full would do traditionally is copy the data, physically copy it back to the media agent and write it to a new location on the storage. With deduplication, that doesn't make any sense, because what's going to happen is we're going to read the data back to the media agent. We're going to generate a signature on that block. We're going to check it in with the dedupe database. Of course, that block already exists. We're reading it from the same library. It's going to check in the signature, it's going to increase the counter, and it's just going to toss out the block. So that's how a traditional synthetic full would work. Enter dash full. Why bother copying all that data back to generate a signature when we know that signature is going to be duplicate anyway? This, again, is where that chunk metadata comes into play. Instead of reading the block back to the media agent, we're just going to go into the chunk metadata, extract the signatures from the chunk metadata, check it into the dedupe database, increase the counters, no data is moved. Metadata has to be rewritten because it's always part of a job, but the actual blocks in the S files, they are not going to be copied over. So that's the difference between a synthetic full and a dash full. So I want to jump forward and talk about dash copy, because dash copy has confused a lot of people because of these two options when you enable dash copy: network optimized and disk optimized. And the names are a bit deceiving, because whether you do disk or network optimized, it has no effect on what data is transmitted over the network. I like to use this analogy of a synthetic full is to network optimized as dash full is to disk optimized. So I'm going to explain what that means, and then I will repeat what I just said. A synthetic full reads a block to the media agent. A network optimized dash copy reads the block to the media agent. The only difference here is with a synthetic full, the signature is checked in the local media agent. With a dash copy network optimized, we generate the signature, we send that signature to the destination media agent, get a response back as to whether or not we need to send that block over. So that is why I say network optimized is the synthetic full. Dash copy disk optimized is the dash full. It's the same concept of a dash full. Instead of reading the block back to the media agent, we go into the chunk metadata, extract the signature. Of course, in this case, we send it to the destination media agent, get a response back, and determine whether or not the block is unique. There's another piece with dash copies that can also be a little confusing, and that is optimized for high latency networks. And I've heard a couple of different explanations of what this is, and this is all it is. Look, when you're using the local cache, where you actually set, back in version 10, you had to set this up with the registry key. Now it's in the UI. Just set use local cache. Basically, what's going to happen when you do the aux copy, be it network or disk optimized, we're going to get the signature, check it in locally first. If the signature doesn't exist locally, we assume it doesn't exist on the other end. And we immediately send the signature and the data across to the other media agent. This way it avoids back and forth chatter going on. That's all optimized for high latency does. So the idea of network optimized is, well, why is it even an option? The only reason it's an option is if your source library is not using convol deduplication. Because if your source library is not using convol deduplication, there are no signatures sitting in the chunk metadata, which means you can't do the disk optimized dash copy. So source library not deduped, you have to use network optimized. If the source is deduped, always use disk optimized. Do not think that if you're in a troubleshooting situation where your aux copies aren't performing well, maybe I'll switch it to network optimized. Don't do it. As a customer, if you're in a situation where your aux copies are not performing well, the best thing to do is call up support and have them help you make the performance better. So it's very simple. Synthetic fulls, dash copy network optimized, dash fulls, auxiliary copy, disk optimized.